faith communities have gone too far in trying to control personal behavior regarding alcohol.
Faith communities have a responsibility to urge for change in alcohol control policies.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you, Mark. And I would also like to welcome you all here to the American Religious Town Hall meeting for this important discussion. So very glad you've joined us. If this is your first time, a special welcome to you. And call your friends. Ask them to tune in with you for today's program. Now, I'd like for you to meet our panelists. Let's begin with the gentleman to my right.
My name is Canon John Peterson. I am an Episcopal priest, canonically resident in the Diocese of Washington.
My name is Phil Bentley. I'm a rabbi, retired, living in Hendersonville, North Carolina.
I'm Tom Plumley. I'm the senior minister at First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas. Our congregation is a part of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ.
I'm Andrea Luxton. I'm president of Andrews University, which is in Berrien Springs, Michigan, which is affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
And my name is Othel H. Lakey, and I'm a bishop in retirement of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, and I live in Buford, Georgia.
Hi, I'm Tony Matthews, and I'm the senior pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
Well, thank you, everyone, for being here today. As you can see, we have diversity in faith and profession from places from where you've come. We're glad that you're able to be here with us today. Let's get to our program, shall we? A recent study from the United Kingdom, funded by the Gates Foundation, concluded that there is no safe level of alcohol consumption. Spanning the years 1990 to 2016, and taking into account data from 195 locations globally, this study is being considered the most comprehensive and far-reaching study of the risks of alcohol to individuals and the global community. Despite earlier studies that have looked at possible benefits of light to moderate drinking for some conditions, this study concludes that the only safe level of alcohol use is no use. In their summary conclusion, the researchers state, quote, alcohol use is a leading risk factor for global disease burden and causes substantial health loss. We found that the risk of all-cause mortality and of cancer specifically rises with increasing levels of consumption, and the level of consumption that minimizes health loss is zero. These results suggest that alcohol control policies might need to be revised worldwide, refocusing on efforts to lower overall population level consumption. Over the years, different faith groups have had different attitudes toward alcohol consumption, spanning from advising against drunkenness to expecting members to abstain fully. One argument is that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit, and therefore we should avoid use of harmful substances, including alcohol. However, this recent report emphasizes the impact on not just the individual, but local and global communities, and considers the importance of alcohol control policies at country level. The questions that we have for the panelists today are these. What do you consider to be the problems alcohol bring to the community? Secondly, should faith communities be concerned not just about the individual and whether alcohol should be used, but the use of alcohol in the wider community? And then finally, what, if anything, should our faith communities do in the face of a report such as this? Now, we're going to return to those who helped to begin the program today, and for that, we go back to Bishop Lakey. Welcome back to the program. Further thoughts on your opening comment,
Well,
please.
thank you very, very much. Back in the 18th century, or 19th century, as it were, my denomination voted overwhelmingly that drinking, alcohol, dancing, and card playing were sins, and all of our members were forbidden to partake. And that bespoke what most of the Protestant denominations were preaching at the time, with the lead being that stay away from alcohol. Don't ever consume any alcohol. And of course, our church and most other churches were very instrumental in helping to pass the Prohibition Amendment to ban alcohol here in America. And we all know the dangers of alcohol and all of the drunkenness and stuff. But we found that trying to control personal behavior from the pulpit just doesn't work. And then when we start cataloging these, quote, sins, the church gets into an area that it has real little control over. And to top it off, almost 20 years ago now, I happened to have had open heart, quintuple bypass heart surgery. And one of the things the doctor said I should do after I got well was to drink some red wine every occasionally. So despite what my religion really had taught me years ago, I have to drink some red wine every now and then to keep myself healthy. So the bottom line to me is that the church really got to stay out of the business of trying to control personal behavior in terms of the use of alcohol. We know its dangers, we know what it does, but trying to control it historically has proven to be very, very ineffective, and I think detracts the church from other things the church should well be doing.
All right, thank you. Dr. Luxton, you took a different position on the subject.
Right.
If you care to expand those thoughts for us.
Yeah, I mean, the Seventh-day Adventist Church is a church that still expects its members to have no alcohol use, so I'll start with that position. But what I want to argue here is not so much that, but it is what is going on in the wider community. There is so much power in the hands of those that provide alcohol. There is so much freedom to advertise and advocate and encourage alcohol use. And what pushback is there to that? The thing that encouraged me about this study was, first of all, it came out of the United Kingdom, which is not known for not encouraging alcohol use. Secondly, it covered a wide span of years and wide globally. And I think it's been recognized as a really important study in looking at how damaging alcohol use can be to whole communities, to societies, let alone to the individuals that become addicted, and how that changes the whole trajectory of their lives. And, you know, I've seen, working with the younger age group, I've just seen the way that alcohol has just changed someone's life. They were heading in one direction, and with addiction, they just head over somewhere completely different. So to me, it is destructive. It's destructive to an individual. It's destructive to communities. And so in the face of the big giants that say, come on, drink more, won't hurt you, good for you, I think there's got to be something that pushes back against that and say, hey, what is this actually doing? Because I do think that when we're looking at faith, we're looking at the whole person, right? And so to me, this is not something that's inconsequential and out there, but is actually very important. So I'm not talking about whether or not it's good for a church to try and control the use of every individual as part of that church. Whatever my position on that is, I think right now the position is, I think that faith communities should be pushing back against those that are trying to say, this is okay, this is just part of who we are, this is part of society, because I think there's another story that needs to be told.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's come downrange. Reverend Plumley, if you could please give us your take on this.
Thank you. I think we need to ask ourselves the question of where have we, from where have we come? Because I think we will discover a lot about our attitudes toward alcohol and alcoholism and drinking in general. At least many of us will, if we ask ourselves questions about the environment out of which we came. The church, the congregation that I serve in the middle of Fort Worth, and the disciples of Christ generally across the country, grew up on the frontier. And the church became a force for saying no drinking because of the misuse and the horrible problems of alcoholism on the frontier. And as the frontier moved west, those problems went with it. I look at Carrie Nation, she who wielded the axe in many a saloon, was a disciple preacher's wife up in Kansas. So that's part of where I come from. But our denomination, our teaching, we are not a teetotaling group. We do not say that it's wrong to drink alcohol. Part of what we were coming out of in those early days was part of an effort to civilize the frontier, and so some of those things that you were talking about not drinking, not gambling, that's because the gambling halls and the saloons and so forth were right next to the bordellos, and our churches in communities where that kind of stuff was rampant were very active in the anti movement, anti all of those things. Theologically, we have no problem with alcohol, but as Dr. Luxton said, something needs to be said. Somebody needs to stand up and wave the flag in the face of all the the indications that you can become a better person by having this beer, or you can become far more attractive by drinking this whiskey. Somebody needs to stand up and say, we got a huge problem of addiction in our country and in the world, and somebody needs to stand up and say this is not healthy.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Matthews, your position, please.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider here. And let me quickly, just from my perspective, look at, you have stats, and these are real. From the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, and I believe this is 2018, more than 80,000 people die from alcohol-related deaths each year in the United States. Alcohol poisoning kills 6 people every day. Alcohol-impaired driving accounts for more than 30% of all driving fatalities each year. More than 15 million people struggle with alcohol use disorder in the U.S., but less than 8% of those receive treatment. And so the stats are staggering. We know that getting drunk, alcohol addiction is a significant problem. The tricky thing is, biblically, if someone were to ask, well, does the Bible say you cannot drink? We can't say that the Bible says that. It says, do not be drunk with wine. But what person or persons have ever gotten drunk that didn't start off drinking? So you have to, it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky. So, and I think we have to apply some wisdom too. As Bishop Lakey said, and I appreciate what he said about his condition and how the doctor told him to take some wine for your health. And I think there's a distinction between drinking for medicinal purposes versus recreational. And I think we have to address that as well. And then there's a question of scripture. The wine, people will say, well, I can drink because Jesus turned water into wine. And wow, is the wine in the first century there? Is that the same? Should we take that and apply it to today? No doubt children were around in that day with Christ. Is that a license for kids to drink? There's a whole lot of questions with this, but in the Baptists, and of course, it's hard to get Baptists to agree on much, but, and though years ago we were pretty solid with, hey, we need to stay away from drinking, this topic has emerged again, and there's a little debate going on as well. But I think we should just kind of stay away from it because everything that's lawful is not beneficial.
Okay, Kenneth Peterson and then Rabbi. Kenneth Peterson.
Yes. First off, I would want to say that with regard to our faith communities, my faith community, the Episcopal Church, doesn't have any legislation or any prohibition in relationship to drinking. I would also want to say, to be transparent, I want to say my own use of alcohol. I personally do not like the taste of alcohol, and I never order a drink simply because I do not like the taste. Now, I have nothing, and I'm not making this as a righteous statement on my position, because when we entertain in our home, we always offer alcohol to our guests. So my dislike of the taste of alcohol has nothing to do with alcohol being served in our home or people being able to drink alcohol, full stop. That being said, I think there is a wide argument today that alcohol use and misuse is a huge public issue. We've just heard that 80 million, did you say 80 million people? What? 80,000 people each year are in the United States are having, is it death? Death. Drinking is associated globally with 2.8 million deaths worldwide. So that's a huge number of deaths worldwide. And at least 23 different health conditions that is associated, from cirrhosis to tuberculosis, as well as several types of cancer, not to mention the role that alcohol has in motor vehicle crashes, sexual assault, and suicides. So I think that indeed we are facing a crisis because of the use or misuse of alcohol. The question that I think that is important for us to consider, and is there any level of alcohol use that is safe? And the study to which we're referring to here is saying no. But the important question for the individual then is how much of a risk does my drinking pose to myself? And it seems to me that that is the issue that we have to deal with, my own personal drinking, and when does it move from social drinking to addiction, ultimately to death?
All right, thank you. Rabbi Bentley, your take on the subject,
Well, this is going to be something completely different because I prepared for this session by looking into this report, and it doesn't say what is purported to say. It just doesn't say it. In fact, it shows that moderate drinkers, in terms of the health parameters that they set up for illnesses directly related to alcohol, between moderate drinkers and non-drinkers, the differences are almost insignificant. In other words, I think some of you may have been led astray by headlines that were sensationalist. I looked up, there are other studies. Another study published in Lancet indicates that moderate drinking, and they indicated 100 grams a week, is not harmful. And another study, which I read about some time ago, said that moderate drinkers actually live longer than teetotalers. I would like to offer a quotation from Moses ben Maimonides, who was a physician and rabbi in the 12th century, over 800 years ago. When a wise man drinks wine, he drinks only enough to accompany the food in his innards, meaning soak it up. Anyone who becomes drunk is a sinner, is disgraced, and loses his wisdom. And if he becomes inebriated before the unlearned, he has desecrated the divine name. It is forbidden to drink in the afternoon, even a small amount, except as part of a meal. As drink which accompanies a meal does not intoxicate, thus scholars are only careful to refrain from wine after the meal. The rule in our tradition is moderation, not abstinence. And in fact, the drinking of wine and even hard liquor is perfectly normative in our tradition, but in moderation.
Okay, thank you very much. And then, yes, Bishop Lakey, you want to,
Thank
you
you
just have
very
a few
much.
seconds left. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm enjoying this discussion. Two things. Number one, we're going to, in the church, have to stop blaming persons for their drinking. We need to ask, why are people drinking, and address those needs. Secondly, we have to do, as Andrea said, deal with those producers who are flooding the market and leading our people to excessive drinking.
All right, thank you. That's all the time we have for this segment. I wish we had more time. We may need to come back to this subject a little later. But for now, there's an important message I'd like for you to hear. Please stand by. We'll be back in a few moments for the summations.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you. Welcome back. Mark just suggested there are two ways you can reach us here at the Town Hall. You can go to the website, you can send us an email from there, or you can send us a regular mail. You can write us a letter, drop a card, let us know what you think about the program, and give us some suggestions about topics you'd like to hear discussed in future programs. We're going to go to our summations at this time. Let's begin with Canon Peterson. You're first.
Yes. I certainly did not hear anyone around this table calling for society to become a teetotaling society. What I did hear is a concern about the amount of deaths that are attributed every year to alcohol. And I think that what the rabbi has just said is extremely helpful in relationship to Maimonides, that he perhaps has laid out a very good formula for us in relationship to drinking. And so I think that what we have to do is to be able to think about this in relationship to moderation, and also to be aware of the enormous impact societally as well as within the family that alcohol can have when alcohol is abused.
All right, thank you. And then Reverend Plumley, your summation.
Yes, thank you. Moderation, I think, is the key to everything virtually. I was amazed to read in this study that that moderate drinking that is supposed to be okay is 1 alcoholic beverage per day for women and 2 alcoholic beverages per day for men. I cannot think of any day in my life in which I've ever had alcoholic beverages 2 days in a row, period, regardless of how many per day. But moderation. What's a problem is that I see is this drinking to get drunk, drinking in order to lose control. I do not understand that. I think that's a huge problem. And the other part of that is drinking to prepare myself for something that's difficult. That doesn't work.
All right, thank you. Bishop Lakey, your
Thank you very
summary.
much. The church can seek ways to help people deal with the reasons why they need to drink excessively. We need to help people find meaning in life. So maybe those that turn to the bottle to solve the issues of their lives may be less appealing.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Matthews, your summation.
Yes, just a couple of quick things. I'll double back and say that I think everyone who gets drunk, which is a problem, they all have started off as drinkers, moderately or whatever. So I think we just have to be careful there. And I'd like to just finish with this scripture here. Ephesians 5:18 says, "Do not get drunk with wine, for that is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit." And I think that's something that we should apply.
All right, thank you very much and for your participation today. And now, Dr. Luxton.
I think we have to separate the individual and the corporate and the community. Because I think with the individual, we can work with individuals and say, okay, what is going on here and why is someone drinking, and be responsive to that. But I think the study that, as I understand it, was really pushing beyond that and really saying that the problem is that in society, this is a norm, it's okay, it's in some degrees encouraged. And from the generation, from the 20s group, that group, 2 drinks a day is nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And the amount of binge drinking that goes on in universities around this country, the impact that has on that group, whole societies, groups of societies where, and tends to be those, unfortunately, where there's most poverty, there tends to be a lot of drinking. And so to me, that's the responsibility of faith communities, is to push back against those that say, that's okay, this is just how we live, this is all right. And change the messaging. I think that's what this is about. And I think that's where we have some responsibility because it's about the community we care about.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Rabbi, your summation.
Yes, well, I'd like to go back to the Bible. In Deuteronomy, in describing the blessings of the land, God says, it says, God will give the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the later rain, that you may gather in your grain and your wine and your oil. And a parallel verse in Psalms says, and wine to gladden the heart of a man, oil to make his face shine, and bread to strengthen his heart. So the Bible basically has a problem with drunkenness, not with wine. Amos said, I will restore the fortunes of my people Israel, and they shall rebuild the ruined cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink their wine, and they shall make gardens and eat their fruit. So wine is considered a blessing, but only in moderation.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for being. It's been an interesting discussion. But for now, the charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America, we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And that's what we've done here today. Thank you. And now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you. With brotherhood from sea.